So let's go over the sanding and sandpapers. Let's take a look in case you didn't get all the answers from the original one. Number one, abrasive grit can be made from flint, garnet, aluminum oxide, or silicon carbide. The aluminum oxide, usually the brown or reddish colored one, and the silicon carbide, the blackish colored sandpapers that are really high grits. Number two, how do manufacturers of sandpaper get the numbering system for the grit sizing? It's how they sort the grit with screens with a different amount of holes per inch officially. Okay. So the grit sizing based off of sifting through the screens, a higher grit will have more holes per inch, so there will be very, very small holes, only let it in very small particles. A low number will have very few holes, allowing in bigger, almost like rocky pieces. Number three, so that means that the larger the number, the smoother, the larger the number, the smoother the sandpaper is, and the smaller the number, the rougher or coarse. So sandpaper is identified by a number followed by letters such as 60D, 80D, 100C, 220A. The number means the size of the grit. The letter is the backing material. So remember that A paper was a really light backing material, very flexible paper. A D paper is a very heavy duty paper. It's going to be strong but not very flexible. A C paper, the 100C there, a little bit lighter than D, a little more flexible. Arrange these grits from the roughest on the left to smoothest on the right. So we would have, looking at this, we have 60 is our roughest, 80 would be a progression you could work through, 100, 120, 180, oops, I'm in the wrong spot, 180, 100, 120, 180, 220, and our finest, smoothest grit, 280. First step in sanding is to remove deep flaws and mill marks. Okay, those might be some scratches or different things, the deep flaws, and then the mill marks coming from our machines, leaving those on there. The second step is to make smaller and smaller scratches. Okay, the 60 or 80 grits are to make some pretty hefty deep scratches, so then we'd use a higher grit, 100 and 120, to make smaller and smaller scratches, eventually getting rid of them or making them blend in. What causes mill marks are planer and machines in general. How can you identify the mill marks? By looking for the lines going across the grain. If you do not remove the mill marks, what effect will it have on a finished piece of wood? Okay, when you apply the finish, it is going to make them, it will make them much more noticeable. And it will look bad. It'll look bad because it'll look like lazy sanding, which it was. If you didn't sand it out, it's just not going to look very good. When sanding is important, number 11 here, when sanding is important to sand the same direction as the grain of the wood. Never sand across the grain. Okay, we want to sand with the grain so that those scratches help blend in. And how can you tell if someone sands across the grain? You're going to see deep scratches going across the grain. And it's actually kind of breaking some of the fibers, so it makes it hard to get it out. Okay. And what will they have to do to correct their mistake? Resand, comma, 1 grit lower, if possible. Okay, so if that happened with 100 grit, you could go down to 80. If it happened to 80, you could go down to 60. Okay. Number 14, when sanding a flat surface, it's important to use a sanding block. And that holds the sandpaper, gives us a nice smooth surface to work with. When looking at a finished piece of wood, how can you tell if a person jumped from 60 to 120, even if he swears he didn't? So that 60 grit sandpaper is going to get rid of the mill marks real quick, but leave some deep scratches. Then the 120 is going to come over it and polish the real high spots, but it's not going to have enough grit to it, enough roughness to get those other scratches out. So you will still see deep scratches. No, there we go. If he really did not skip grits, what did he do wrong? He didn't sand for long enough with the other grits. Didn't sand for long enough with the other grits. Okay, so there you go. Quick go through on these. Make sure you got the right answers and everything.